Good evening, listeners, and welcome to a very special episode of Red Moon Roleplaying. Today, I, Craig Austin, am joined by two very special guests who I'm very honoured to be working with tonight. Mr. Tallsquall, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us who you'll be playing this evening?
Hi, I'm Tallsquall. Excited to be here, excited for this, my first time playing something powered by the apocalypse, and tonight I will be playing Prosecutor Joshua Katz.
Indeed you will. And our other guest this evening, Mr. Josh.
Hello, it's so wonderful to be here. I'm used to playing in games powered by just the power of Tallsquall's voice, so it'll be nice to play in something that's powered by the apocalypse. Not my first rodeo, but for this one, for the first time, I will be playing psychologist Caitlin Dam.
Indeed, and tonight we will be playing the one-shot scenario for KULT Divinity Lost, known as Oakwood Heights. Our scene begins at the police station on Livernois Avenue in the city of Detroit, Michigan. The weather today is what you'd expect for November. Grey, miserable, cold. It's been drizzling ever so slightly all day. Still, as the time comes around to 2 p.m, our two characters have work to do. They are both currently heading into the police station, which is a dilapidated building in central Detroit. You're heading to conference room 1 to meet with Lieutenant Pierce to get a rundown of today's planned activities. How are you today, Joshua Katz?
Doing well. Cold, wet. My hair is disheveled, which has me a little bit upset, as it is normally pristine in its order, with the copious use of product to make sure that his appearance is always up to snuff. His overcoat, expensive wool, has kept him mostly dry, and a smart umbrella he has now tucked underneath of his arm as he walks into the station, very businesslike, with a folio in one hand, the details of his case being reviewed in his mind, so to be as concise and precise in his any delivery that he might need to make to get exactly what he needs out of this meeting.
Of course, you are always very on alert for these sort of things, Mr. Katz. Details don't skip by you very easily, do they?
They do not. Details are what you use to make sure situations go the way you expect, the way you want, and that the outcomes are what you desire and are going to work best for you and your client.
Indeed. Meanwhile, Miss Dahamre...
She is excited, but playing it down entirely. Work is sort of her obsession. It fills a great void in her life at the moment, so really for her, having something with twists and turns that she can sink her teeth into, to unwrap layer by layer, peel it back, lay it all out, and sort of see how it all fits together as sort of a living organism. That is something that she really craves right now, and she's trying to obviously seem entirely professional about the entire thing, but she does have that slight affectation of she's drumming with her stylus on her iPad, just that kind of nervous reflex of someone who's anxious to get on with something. Other than that, she's completely composed. She is blonde with her hair pulled back into a simple ponytail. Her makeup is very simple, not provocative as such. She wears a pair of simple black glasses and a slimming cardigan that is mirrored by her very practical, no-nonsense pencil skirt and short but cute kitten heels. So nothing too racy about her appearance. She carries a briefcase with her, looking professional, but inside feeling apprehensive to get this underway.
Indeed, this is certainly going to be a very interesting scenario today, Caitlin. Still, play your cards right, and this could be big for you. Very big. you both eventually make your way to the conference room, which is to a large extent rather dull. It features a whiteboard with pens, every other one spent. There's a projector for presentations, while uncomfortable chairs sit around a conference table marked with patterns of coffee stains. The floor is covered by a thick dark brown wall-to-wall carpeting. Outside, the rain is drizzling a little against the window. It's not been too bad since you've come in, but it's definitely going to be a rainy day, you feel. Since the station has problems with heating, an electric radiator stands at the far end of the room, vainly fighting to chase away the bitter November chill. You're not alone as you enter the conference room. Standing on that table, going over some papers, is Lieutenant Pierce, a man in his 50s, 60s, a very tired lieutenant, balding around the top of his head, grey hair, rough tie on at the moment, kind of a dirty white shirt. He's currently sipping away at what's probably a very cold cup of coffee. Also in the room is a woman in her 30s, wearing quite a stylish leather coat, currently smoking indoors. She's quite a hard-looking woman. And there's also an man. He looks reasonable enough, quite an earnest sort. Again, also in his 30s, 40s, with a thinning hairline. He's wearing a bit of a suit, actually. Or, well, not a proper suit, more like someone's just trying to dress up nice and neatly, that sort of appearance. You actually know who that gentleman is, Caitlin, and you, Katz, would also know who the woman is. The woman is Detective Felicia Jenner, and the man, Aidan Krostroff, currently on off duty, but normally on duty, beat officer. They all look up as you come in, and Pierce is the first one to speak. Ah, Katz and, Miss
The Hammer.
Right, Miss. Brilliant. Come in, let's get this show on the road. You two are almost late. Mr. Katz, have you got all your paperwork?
Of course.
Good. He takes a sip of cold coffee. Aidan is watching, but not really saying anything. Felicia turns her attention onto you, Joshua Katz. She's trying to assess you, you feel. Pierce clears his throat, has a sip of cold coffee, and remarks, Right, okay. So, we know why we're here, right? But for the benefit of the shrink, I'll go over the things that you need to know. Today's gonna be very simple. We're doing a very basic tour of the crime scene, yeah? You've got Mr. Mills out, Katz, that's all been settled. You're not gonna have him for very long, though. You're gonna take him to the scene of the crime, you're gonna try and get whatever you can get out of him, and then he comes straight back, right? Personally, I think this is a complete waste of time, but, you know, you and your case.
Understood.
So, Miss, DeHammer, right? I guess you want to go over some things, right? Some of your bloody case or whatever. You probably haven't read any of this, have you?
I have had the cliff notes, as it were, but I always find it interesting to hear from individuals who are so personally wrapped up in the case.
Sure thing. He looks at the other two individuals in the room, nods and remarks, So, Franklin Mills. A right scumbag. Hopefully, gonna go to jail for a very long time. But Mr. Katz here wants a little bit of extra information on the case, so Mr. Mills is gonna go for a little walkabout to the crime scene, and you, Mrs. Caitlin DeHammer, you're gonna try and psych him out a little, and, well, he leans over to you, Mr. Katz. I'll admit that if you could find out where he put the boy's body, that is the only thing missing, otherwise a nice, clean-cut case.
Joshua sort of all but cuts him off with a hand as he's really... Shall we try to remember that we are talking about a person's life here? A boy who is taken. This isn't just to see what we can get. It's to try to maybe save someone.
Pierce gives you a very weary look and shakes his head a little. Katz, I thought you were experienced. Come on, the kid...
I thought you were here to serve the public. The boy is missing. He is not to be considered dead yet.
Well, if you can bring out an alive kid, I'll be impressed. All right. He holds up his hand. Aiden, you notice, nods a little, Katz. He kind of seems to get what you're saying. He fidgets a little with his tie, though, as he looks at you, Mrs. de Hamre. What do you think of Mr. Aiden at this point?
She doesn't jump to any conclusions about anyone. She understands that he has a very stressful job as a beat cop. I believe he was, from what I remember from my notes, he was actually sort of one of the first people on the scene, and therefore he's been through some traumatic experiences, so she's keeping an eye on him, just to evaluate him.
Yes, you are very aware. He's aware of this. Maybe that's why he's wearing the smart clothing. Although, I wonder if that would impress you, and change your opinion of him at all. Still, Pierce leans forward and gets out the first bit of paper. All right. This is for your benefit, Caitlin, so listen up. We're going to go over the course of events so that you can work out best where to, trigger his memory. After all, Mill's biggest defense at the moment is that he doesn't remember a thing. Fucking doesn't remember a thing, my ass. All right. Saturday, 22nd of August, 2015. 10:10. Franklin Mills attacks and beats up Colin Thomas, a former work colleague, in Thomas's home. He wants his weapons, but Colin Thomas has already sold them. Franklin ties Colin up and steals Colin Thomas's car, 1998 Ford Contour with the license plate CHK 4PLS. 11 till 1 to 11:17, Franklin Mills is caught on surveillance camera as he buys duct tape, rope, nails, knives, hammers, and a crowbar at Acme Bolts and Nuts. Later on, Franklin Mills enters the Bedford family home at 12 o'clock, and he's there till 3:30, we believe. Their home is at 514 South Waring Street, Oakwood Heights. He enters via the porch door at the back. William Bedford, 9, and the neighbour, Lynn Jakolski, 55, are at home. Lynn has been recruited by the Bedford family as babysitter. Franklin Mills kills Lynn and holds William prisoner. During the afternoon, Franklin Mills vandalizes the house, tears down wallpaper, burns up the kids' toys, and other belongings on the floor of the living room area. Thereafter, Franklin Mills cuts off the legs of the family's dog, Zappy. At roughly 1:16, Colin Thomas, who's escaped, reports the assault and the car theft to the police. An arrest warrant is issued for Franklin Mills, and the car is reported stolen. 3:30, Ryan Bedford, 43, is believed to have come home from work at the discount store Target. Franklin is lying in wait for him. Ryan is executed under torture-style circumstances. 16:42, Franklin Mills forces William Bedford to phone his schoolmate, Soraya Nadell, and asks if she wants to play. 5 o'clock, Soraya Nadell arrives at the house on her bicycle. Franklin Mills suffocates her in a wardrobe on the top floor of the house. 17:52, Franklin Mills leaves William Bedford tied up in the wardrobe on the house's top floor, along with the girl's body, and drives off in the stolen car. He's seen leaving by a neighbour, Jerome Allen, who becomes suspicious. Jerome goes over, knocks on the door, but there's no response. He calls us and gives a description of Franklin Mills and the vehicle. 16:15, Franklin Mills parked his car outside St. Patrick's Senior Centre at 58 Parsons Street, where Janice Bedford, the mother, 37, works. He lures her out of the car, knocks her down, and kidnaps her. It's at this point, at 18:43, that Aiden arrives at the scene. In response to Jerome Allen's reported complaint, he discovers signs of violence in the house and calls for backup, and then enters the house to look for survivors and perpetrators. Shortly after, Franklin Mills returns to the house and overpowers Aiden. You notice at this point that Aiden looks down at his shoes. Seems a bit uncomfortable. He takes him as hostage and travels southwest in the car along with William Bedford and Janice Bedford. They drive along St. Ford Street, where witnesses lose track of them. Now at 7:01, detectives Felicia Jenner and Clark Glover arrive at the crime scene on 514 South Waring Street. After discovering the bodies and Aidan Krostroff missing, a statewide arrest warrant is issued for Franklin Mills. Police patrols are dispatched to his home and his workplace. They follow up the stolen car report. 8:15, Zug Island. Detective Felicia Jenner learns through Colin Thomas. While former workmates, he and Franklin were involved with dismantling a derelict ship at Zug Island. 8:32, Felicia Jenner and Clark Glover go to Zug Island and discover the stolen vehicle in the pier. Felicia Jenner calls for backup, and they board the ship. Again at this point, Joshua Katz, you notice Miss Jenner reaches for a flask on her person. You can't quite see what's in it, but she takes a quick sip as she's listening to this part of the briefing. 1843 to 2049. Pierce frowns a little as he makes a mistake with the time. He sips a coffee and rubs his eyes. He's clearly quite tired, you notice. Sorry, I meant 2043 to 2049, Zug Island. Clark Glover is slain aboard the ship during a shootout with Franklin Mills, who then locks himself in the engine room. When Felicia Jenner finally gains entrance to the engine room, she discovers Franklin Mills in a catatonic state, along with the unconscious officer Aidan Kostroff, and the body of Janice Bedford. William Bedford is nowhere to be found. 2049 police reinforcements, ambulance and forensics personnel arrive at the ship at Zug Island. Conclusion. Gentlemen, ladies, despite a thorough forensic sweep, Aidan Kostroff's testimony and a search with dogs, William Bedford's body has not been recovered. He is presumed dead, either drowned in the river or in the lower levels of the ship, or hidden away somewhere in that rusty hull, where the coal and waste oil hides the smell from the dogs. So you can see, Mr. Katz, while I'll be very surprised if the boy's still alive.
We must have hope. Perhaps. Slight. But the case is odd enough. Stranger things have happened in Detroit.
This is true. He then goes over a few more bits of paper very quickly. I don't think we need to go over the murder scene. You've got what you need. Go to the site and just, work it out. Same with what happened at Zug Island. Furthermore, Aidan, you can just tell them your report. Not much there that isn't in this. However, Caitlin, perhaps you want to read out his profile. Might help with your psychoanalysis.
She smiles politely, gives a nod, and she glances at everyone in the room as she opens her briefcase, pulls out a slim iPad, powers it up, and links with the projector so she can put up the man's criminal profile on the wall. And ladies, gentlemen, if you please, would you direct your attention towards the screen? Franklin Mills grew up in Oakwood Heights in Detroit. His father, Richard, left the family early, and Franklin grew up with his mother, Martha, and his younger sister, Lisa. Franklin might have suffered from behavioral disorders and didn't have many friends growing up. He was known as a problem child who got into fights, and on 2 occasions he was forced to change schools. Franklin ran away from home in 1985. He took several odd jobs in northern states. On occasion he got into trouble with the law, mostly for lesser infractions. He was, among other charges, apprehended for assault, theft, car theft, possession of drugs, and making unlawful threats. However, may I draw your attention to the autumn of 1991, where Franklin's mother, Martha Mills, was arrested for the murder of her daughter, Lisa Mills, Franklin's sister. Martha had locked her up in a wardrobe on the upper floor of the house in question being number 514 South Waring Street. This resulted in Lisa's death from extreme dehydration, as she was denied food or water over a long period. Martha underwent a forensic psychiatric investigation and was incarcerated at Long Hill Psychiatric Hospital. Franklin visited his mother at Long Hill on only one occasion, and 6 months later, Martha Mills took her own life. Franklin Mills has over 3 years held sundry jobs within construction, industry, welding, and dismantling. He has mainly stayed around Michigan. Now and then he has been arrested for petty crimes and has spent brief periods in prison. On Saturday, August 22nd, 2015, Franklin Mills returned to his parental home at 514 South Warring Street. There he committed several murders with sadistic features directed against the family who were living in the house. He was eventually apprehended on the derelict ship on Zug Island, discovered in a catatonic state. When he regained the full capacity of his senses, he however claimed to have no memory of the events, nor about large chunks of his life. He has gone through a psychological evaluation, but it appears unable to understand he has committed the crimes and any possible motives for this. The forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, I'm sure you're all very much more familiar than I, all suggest Franklin Mills' guilt for all attributed crimes. I have listed his criminal record, which as you can see is sporadic and up until now has not been anything of extreme note, but has been frequent and I would say has tied to a downward spiral. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, I believe Franklin Mills is an incredibly unwell individual, and I feel as though taking him through this scene may bring back more than just memories of the atrocities he has committed. More things that have shaped him. These are the things that I wish to focus on, for I understand that it is key into what motivates him to do the things that he has done. I obviously offer my full cooperation to Mr. Katz and hope that together we can unravel this mystery and, if the gods be blessed, find this child.
The way I see it, Miss Caitlin, ain't no mystery about it. I'm letting Mr. Katz do all this to get information on the boy. That's it. The rest of it is a clear-cut case. In fact, I was going to say, don't go to the crime scene and start messing around with things. Don't try and find leads where there are none. The guy's guilty of sin, and he's going down.
You're absolutely right, but from what I understand, the child is an innocent in this, so it is reassuring to hear that Mr. Katz here is slightly more open-minded than other individuals sat in this room.
Yes, there is no doubt of this man's guilt. We're not trying to prove him innocent. We're trying to save an innocent life. And if worst case, give closure on this to everybody. This city is torn apart by this. Everyone knows of it. Everyone is afraid. Everyone is making wild conjecture. We need to give not just this case closure, we need to give this city closure.
Pierce gives Caitlin a bit of a look at her last comment. He does actually seem to be eased down a little, though, by what you say, Mr. Katz. He understands people like you, maybe even works with them more often than people like Caitlin, who maybe you're getting a bit of disdain.
I'm not the most liked individual in this room. She's very much aware that everyone else in this room sees it very clean cut, and psychologists have a tendency to mess with things. So she understands the animosity entirely, but she still speaks her mind with that kind of clarity and authority that maybe this room doesn't entirely believe she's earned yet, but she definitely is going to speak her mind.
And Pierce, you know the look, But you also know that from him it was quite muted. You do, however, notice that Miss Felicia, her look at you was a little bit more spirited. She kind of scoffed a few times while you were speaking and just trying to be polite, but you can clearly get a little bit of resentment coming from her direction towards you. Pierce clears his throat. So, Mr. Katz, any closing statements? Or you got everything you need?
I have everything I need. Right now I just need Franklin Mills and Caitlin and these two. They can accompany us to, and he looks at both of them with a big smile, very charmingly, to say, and any other details that might be jogged in their memories as well. I know we have their briefings, but having all the players in one place can often tell a story that might have been missed in individual statements. He just big smile.
Felicia gives you a firm nod, leans forward. Yeah, sure, whatever, just as long as we get this done quick, and then that bastard can get what's coming to him.
I was just curious, how far is it did we have to travel?
Pierce remarks, it's not very far at all. He looks at his watch. 3:30 p.m. is when Mills is going to come down to the crime scene 1, under guard, of course. You've then got 3 hours. That gives you enough time to jog around the house, get him over the boat, do whatever you have to do to get your information. After that time, he's going back to the penitentiary, and I'm sorry, but that's the best I can give you, Katz.
That's enough.
Very well, that is plenty of time to unravel this. Maybe beforehand, if we would like to freshen up. Felicia, if you'd like a refill. The coffee.
Felicia gives you a bit of a look at that statement, and then when you say coffee, goes, alright, yeah, now I'm good. Too much coffee in the morning, makes me a bit jittery, you know.
That explains the shakes. Anything for yourself, officer? And she turns her attention to Aiden.
Aiden shakes his head. He is a lot more with it seems. Slightly nervous when you speak to him, but... no ma'am, and that's fine. I'm good. I'm really happy to help. If I remember anything, I'll do my best to let you guys know, but as you've read from my report,
No, of course.
I don't know why, I think I took a big blow to the head, must have messed with my memory or something, but I will do my best to help you.
I understand, of course, and it can take time for these things to consolidate in your mind, so my door is always open for you.
Can I, take a moment? Is this my first time, with Crossoff, or have I deposed him prior to this?
This is your first time meeting any of these individuals, really, other than a lieutenant. You are, after all, still making your name. You haven't quite got everyone yet, especially, to be honest, people of his level. I mean, he's just a beat cop. Why would you know him?
In that case, can I do read a person on old Kostoff, specifically when he talks about conjecturing that he, must have taken a blow to the head?
You certainly can. Please roll plus intuition.
That is an 11.
You can ask one question to me about what you're getting from him. You've got some sample questions there, for example, and I shall answer as truthfully as you'd be able to ascertain.
Oh, well, I'll just go straight out. I'll go with the, do I believe that he's lying or that he's hiding something?
You give him a good, hard look. Is he lying? You think a little. Something about the way he says it. It sounds to you like maybe he isn't actually convinced that's true. But you don't think he's deliberately lying. Maybe just making up an excuse.
Gotcha.
So, Mr. Pierce looks at you both. So, you ready to roll out or what?
I think we need to get on the way. We'll just make it as it is to rendezvous at 3:30, correct?
Get there for 3:30, get to the boat in time, get this done. And with that, then, do you leave to go to the crime scene? How do you think you'd do that?
Smartly, Joshua would check his surroundings, make sure he has everything. He would try to let everyone go in front of him to kind of get a good, just sort of watching people leave a room, how they handle themselves when otherwise at a task. He's just going to keep an eye on things, but also he will sort of adjust his tie, straighten his coat, that piece of hair that is sort of dropped out of place, make sure it's tucked back up before exiting the precinct and heading to the crime scene. As I said, he stays toward the back to not necessarily be observed how he is checking his appearance.
Caitlin will also hang back. There'll probably be a moment where it's almost just the two of them sat opposite sides of this terrible conference table with the smell of stale coffee and cigarettes still in the air, the dreary sort of rain tapping on the window, but she is making herself busy, not rushing in any way, but making sure she's disconnected her iPad from the projector and everything like that, and smiles to Joshua.
So it will be interesting working with you for the first time. This is one of your largest cases to date, from what I understand.
Yes. Interesting working with you as well, Miss Dahamre.
You don't have to be so polite. I'm well aware of the reputation that my profession brings in certain circles.
You, misunderstand. To me, you are the key to all of this.
She cocks her head slightly to one side and smiles. Again, sort of doing the same thing he does, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and gives him a kind of studying, curious look.
It is refreshing to meet somebody who understands that sometimes a broader perspective is necessary.
Your unique perspective, I think, is what is going to possibly make it that we can save this boy, if he is in fact able to be saved.
I think saving this boy is more complicated than just finding him. You notice that these two addresses from two very distant crimes match up. This is his childhood home that he went to, and what he did to some of the victims was something done to his sister. Now a boy is missing, and he ran away. History has a nasty habit of repeating itself, and people as unfortunately unhinged as Franklin have often sought to reconstruct their past and reconstruct themselves in others. Not as drastic as cultivating an heir to his legacy, but it is not 1,000 miles away from that.
Well, I guess we shall see, won't we? After you, Mr. Hamre. He graciously puts his hand out and opens the door for her.
She sort of has her iPad sort of clutched to her chest, and smiles and sort of bats her eyelashes at him for the briefest of moments, and then sachets out of the office holding her briefcase with her handbag slung over her shoulders.
How did you wrap your cord for your iPad? Did you wad it up or did you roll it up?
Oh, roll it. You never wad it up. No, it was wrapped slowly and carefully, and actually tied through to make sure that it doesn't become tangled.
Oh, you still have like the Velcro tab. Okay.
Oh yes.
Good to know.
Look at you doing my job.
Caitlin, as you depart, you don't quite notice this, but Pierce just very quickly comes back in the room and just motions for you, Katz. Hey, Katz, one final thing before you go, yeah? Don't let the shrink tear this away from you, yeah? The guy's going down, not to some cushy little mental asylum. He's going to prison. Whatever happens, just, make sure she doesn't mess around with shit or anything, right?
The case is solid. there's no question that he's going away for a very long time. I will make sure of that.
Good man.
This is about the boy, and only the boy.
Good man, good man. And he sort of gives you a bit of a respectful nod at that and walks off.
Yeah, I give him a clap on the shoulder, sort of a fatherly, make him feel as though he's my mentor and has, helped me along the way. And it's sort of a friendly, and I give him sort of a side glance, and then, I give a glance up towards Caitlin's, Mr. Hamra's back, and back to him, and a nod and a smile, and follow her out of the precinct.
And you all leave the precinct. You all make your way to the crime scene, whether by your own vehicle or police vehicle. How would you drive to the scene of the crime, Prosecutor Joshua Katz?
He is actually torn, but decides to take his own well-kept, freshly waxed vehicle, black BMW.
Caitlin doesn't drive.
As I see her standing, sort of wondering what vehicle to take, as I'm sure there's we have some police officers escorting us just in case. And so she doesn't have to ride in the back. I offer her a ride. Mr. Hamra, would you like someplace more comfortable to make the transition to the site?
She smiles broadly and kindly, and
that would be most appreciated. It's a very lovely car you have.
It was a gift.
Is this a very generous friend? Family?
When my parents passed away, they left me a sum of money. It is nicer to say it's a gift than that a inheritance. And he opens the door for her.
She climbs in and will wait for him to sit down before and sort of turn the engine over before she responds.
Well, it is nice to see that you have made something of it. I mean, obviously a car is lovely, but getting to a position such as yourself, law school is not cheap, and you have certainly looked to make something of yourself. It is admirable.
Another gift from my parents. As he turns over the engine, classical music comes on the radio. Nice Mozart sonata coming on.
And you two drive to the scene of the crime. You would also notice that Detective Felicia Jenner and Aidan got into a basic squad car. They drive off just before you. The drive isn't long, let's say 10-20 minutes, before you arrive at Oakwood Heights, and you arrive at South Waring Street, 514. As you pull up into the driveway area, notice the house. It's a 2-story building with a dilapidated facade. The white paint is peeling, the garden overgrown, the lawn all yellowy, thorny grass. Pale plastic children's toys are scattered about the place. Sleet gathers in pools on the driveway. Around the front door there are remains of police tape, apparently having been torn down. In the distance you can see the refineries and factories towering behind the house. From these there emanates monotonous sounds of industry and machinery. You also notice at this point the rain starting to pick up a little. Still perhaps a drizzle, but earlier it was almost seeming to fade away, but now it's very slowly starting to pick up the pace. You arrive in your car, the others arrive in the car as well, and just as you're about to get out, you, Mr. Katz, notice, of course, a large white van pulling up. On the side of the white van, it reads Detroit News, and out pop a nice little bunch of journalists waiting for you to exit. What do you do?
Joshua looks to Caitlin. Well, the vultures are here. He gets out of the car, opens his umbrella, and immediately rushes around to open Caitlin's door and offer shelter under his umbrella for her to be, and whisks her in. He gives a look back towards the media van, but pays them no mind other than to sort of glance back, take note of how many and who, and then sort of, again, because they're under a single umbrella, tries to whisk Caitlin into the house.
Caitlin holds herself close to him to stay under the umbrella, all but puts her arm around him, but doesn't sort of make any actual advances. But they are snug as they progress into the scene of the crime.
The journalist crew quickly moves to intercept you just before you get in. You recognize the main one leading the proceeding, Joshua? Ah, Kate Dixon. Not a bad young lady, making a name for herself in the news business. She's clearly the one leading the questions, and you see the cameraman and a few other people writing things behind her. She moves very quickly, doesn't seem to care that much about the rain, although one guy behind her has an umbrella for the equipment. Mr. Katz, sources have said you are planning a tour of the Bedford crime scene with the suspect Franklin Mills. Is this correct?
We are on official business, Kate, you know that. I can't discuss the intricacies of our investigations, but we are attempting to get some closure on some loose ends that still remain.
Yes, of course. The missing boy, William Bedford. Is there any possible chance he is still alive?
I have no comment on that, but our prayers are always with the missing.
Of course. People are noting down everything you say in that typical, sometimes rather annoying journalistic manner. Mr. Katz, you are a highly educated lawyer, originally from Washington, D.C. Why have you chosen to serve the law in Detroit?
Detroit needs all the help it can get, and I'm here to serve the public as best I can. We've brought in a specialist to try to close some loose ends. That's all I have to say at this time. Thank you, Kate.
Of course. And then one little side guy comes up to you, Caitlin. Miss DeHamre, right? Mr. Hamre, right? So do you hope this tour of the crime scene is going to provide you additional insight into Franklin Mills' psychological profile and why he committed the crimes?
She pauses for a moment and she turns with sort of that practice smile to make sure that he's paying attention, and she says, well, of course, it is always important to understand what would cause someone to commit an act that is so unhinged and detached from society's norms. But I appreciate that when it comes to unlocking the mind of someone who has committed such barbaric acts, it is sometimes difficult to do without reconstructing the scenarios that link them to their past.
The guy's noting down everything. This, of course, we believe was the house, apparently, people say, where Franklin Mills originally grew up. Is there any reason why he'd returned to his parental home to commit this crime? Maybe revenge, or maybe some crazy, like serial killer-like aspect or something?
Obviously, I cannot speak to the ongoing investigation, as I will have to direct all further questions towards my colleague, Mr. Katz, but one closing note would be that we are looking into all possible avenues, including the possibility that this is a reconstruction of his traumatic childhood.
Katz jumps in, but make no mistake, Franklin is guilty of this crime. His fate is determined. We're here to find and solve and determine what fate became of the young boy. Franklin's story is already written. We are here to help out William and bring him home to safety, or at least bring closure to this for us all. No more comments, and I quickly usher Caitlin inside.
And you two start heading forwards. You just turn back yourself, Caitlin, to notice the press are trying to do the same to Detectives Felicia Jenner and Aiden. But Aiden is responding very little. You just catch one comment. Detective Jenner, how does it feel to soon be facing the man who shot your partner? And you just see Detective Felicia Jenner say, fuck off before coming to join you guys.
Before she joins us, and as Joshua is ushering Caitlin away, Caitlin has gone sort of like a pinkish hue, and she's fumbling with her iPad, and she...
Apologies, I'm used to a more intimate one-to-one scenario with questions, and, well, I wasn't quite expecting so many people.
You did fine. They're gonna chop it apart in a million ways anyway.
Now I understand why some of your colleagues need coping mechanisms.
How disheveled is she?
She's sort of holding a briefcase now in both hands, sort of in front of her, almost like a shield. She's gone sort of a pinkish shade, but other than that, she still has a confident walk. She still holds herself in the correct posture. Her hair hasn't fallen out of place. She doesn't sort of like stare down and sort of drum on the briefcase or anything like that, but it's just she almost shifts into a more defensive kind of stance.
And the two of you just sort of begin to make your way into the front porch. Just about to enter the house itself. You, of course, Mr. Katz, have a map of the whole building. It's not a very complicated building, to be honest. And it's just as you're all four of you starting to gather in that you hear the screech of another vehicle pulling up. You check your watch, Katz. The time is now 3:36. And you see an anonymous white van pulling up. And out of it, you see one man slowly leading out another man. You are, of course, familiar with the man being led out. You've seen the mugshots. Franklin Mills has arrived. He's a 45-year-old man dressed in orange penitentiary overalls with a quilted jacket atop. With greyish skin, Franklin is emaciated and continuously quivering. He looks confused. He appears to have lived a hard life. He wears hand and foot cuffs, which restrict his walking speed down to short steps presently. He is, however, being led to the front door by a larger man. You're not quite sure who he is, but you assume he must be from the penitentiary. He's got a set of headphones in his ear at the moment, like he's listening to something on his smartphone. He's dressed in penitentiary uniform. He clearly is the handler for this individual. The press mill around Mr. Mills for a moment, trying to get questions from him. He is very quickly led towards you.
Katz immediately points out to Mr. Hamra. I told them to put him in a vest. We don't need him getting shot out here. The city's furious about this.
She sort of nods. It would be a tragic end to a tragic life.
Part of this is going to be us making sure the public knows that he is going to get justice. I understand what your viewpoint in this is going to be, and I need that viewpoint. But to all those people out there, him coming to justice and a just end is what's going to keep this city from exploding.
A just end? Well, what do you consider a just end?
For this, there is only one end. It's unforgivable what he did.
You're absolutely correct. Do you believe it will be the last instance of it occurring?
No. But it'll be his last instance of this occurring.
I agree that he should be put away and he should be properly reprimanded.
Reprimanded? For God's sakes, he cut the dog's legs off.
And that sounds like the actions of an entirely stable individual.
Treatment? Is that what you're suggesting?
Do you know how it is that prosecutors like yourself will one day identify the patterns of serial killers and the psychologically deranged? They read journals of medical professionals who have examined past cases in depth. Incarcerating a man, leaving him to rot in solitary confinement, or even executing will do nothing to unravel the mystery as to why it is that he committed these horrid sins. And also, it will do nothing to help us if we need to heal William or stop another William from disappearing off the streets.
You're thinking of studying him.
Tell me, when you came up through law school not that long ago, did you read fiction? Or did you read past cases?
Frankly, both.
Well, if Mr. Holmes has any insights on this particular thing, I'm sure he will be most welcome to chip in. But if those past cases that you have examined, studied, learnt your entire trade from, or anything to go by, understanding an individual is key to understanding future individuals. Do not waste this opportunity, Mr. Katz.
He sort of shakes his head at her, and I assume by this point, Franklin is being brought in.
Yes, you notice from the main lead journalist, she does a little thing where she sort of talks to something in her ear, an earpiece, and she sort of very quickly remarks, "All right, guys, come on, we got a shooting down Broadway fight, okay, and they're suddenly heading off back in the van, obviously following whatever next news story there is. Obviously, they know they're not going to get any more here. And that van drives off, and as the rain picks up a little, you are just left with this security guard bringing Franklin Mills to the doorstep.
Caitlin is going to study him like a surgeon studying sort of medical manual before, a major operation. This is him coming home in a very real sense, but also this is him repeating steps that he would have repeated many, many times in the past. He is retracing childhood memories, the instance where, he returned, potentially after he came back, after he ran away. There's 1,000,001 times memories that are tied to those footsteps, walking up this particular path towards this particular door on this particular house. He's smelling things, local, maybe the neighbour's garden, maybe the sounds of the street, nearby main road. There's 1,001 things that could be playing through his mind now, and all of them are vital to understanding him. So Caitlin is going to study him, holding sort of she's got her iPad out, holding it close to her chest, almost like her Bible, really. Can I roll sort of to see what I can tell from his expression as he walks up?
I'm going to say you don't need to roll, Caitlin, at least at this point, because this is your first analysis and you are very good at analysing people. The main thing that strikes you immediately is, after everything you've just said, everything you've just fought, how the hell can this man be looking at his childhood home with almost no expression? It's like he doesn't even recognise where he is. He looks tired, angry, confused, and the reactions are not correct. These are not right. He should be responding very differently. It's almost as if he's just pulled up to a house he's never seen before.
So, before he arrives, she will turn to Mr. Katz and say,
"Remarkably calm for a man who's experienced so much trauma underneath this roof. Odd, would you not agree?"
Those case files that you liked to bring up, if they tell me anything, it's that every defendant reacts in a different way, and you never quite know what you're going to get when you're dealing with people who've been through the things that have happened here. We know from the way he was found, he's locked off this part of his mind. It's why you're here. I want you to unlock it.
And with that statement, the penitentiary guard brings him up to the front porch. The wind starts to pick up a little. The sky is darkening. And Detective Felicia Jenner remarks, "Look, let's just get him inside and at least get out of the bloody rain." And she begins to lead you in to the house.
You have listened to a special episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the adventure Oakwood Heights for KULT Divinity Lost, together with our friends Josh and Tallsquall, who are part of the amazing team over at Encounter Roleplay. Find them on twitch.tv, Encounter Roleplay, YouTube, and their two excellent podcasts, Turncloaks, as well as Tomes and Tentacles. KULT Divinity Lost is made by Helmgast. Oakwood Heights was designed by the acclaimed master of horror, Peter Nalo. The music was created by Atrium Carceri and is used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Head over to cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more delicious dark ambient. As always, a big thank you to all supporters. If you enjoy the show and want to encourage our work, head over to Patreon and see if you want to support the show there. We hope you enjoyed this special episode and look forward to meeting again. Thank you for listening.